Hello and welcome to Victoriana. It's the beginning of June. I'm wearing my body warmer. It's really cold, and literally today is the first day that we've been able to get out in the veg garden for weeks and weeks. We are way behind with everything outside at the moment, and everything outside growing is way behind as well, so we're not too worried in that regard that we're behind. It's more the case that everything is behind because the weather's been so grotty and cold and wet and miserable. Thankfully the wind's dropped today, and like I say, we're actually going to start outside here on the veg garden again and try and whack in everything that we need to. Apparently the weather's coming back nasty again next week, so we've literally got a couple of days to get as much as we can done. So I'm going to get on with that now, and I'll give you a quick run around the nursery in a minute or two. So this year is one of those years where a tunnel really proves its worth. As I say, it's been cold and grotty through May and into the beginning of June, but here in the tunnel the tomatoes are picking up nicely now. We've got those all containerised, and similarly we've got all the chilies now containerised, and they're on the move. I think everything is going to be late in here this year, but it will certainly get there, and it's actually nice to see some growth. And yeah, with all the grotty weather we've had, it's actually one place where we've been able to get on and get jobs done. So out here on the beds, it's been a very interesting year. The cold and wet has meant that all our fruit hasn't rooted in as quickly as it usually would. But similarly, the tops have grown away very well. So we've had a lot of top growth. But haven't actually been able to start dispatching any of this because it hadn't fully rooted through. But thankfully we're there now, and we have actually literally just started dispatching out all our potted fruit and grapes as well. And on the grape front as well, we've had an awful lot of very late growth on those, both top and bottom. So yeah, up until even a couple of weeks ago, many varieties of grapes were looking like they were completely dead. But in the last couple of weeks they've jumped into growth. Everything seems to be rooting through, and as I say, we can finally get on and get moving on all the bits and pieces out here. Down here in the flower area, a bit like the veg garden, it's been more a case of trying to keep on top of the weeds, and not much else really. It's just been too wet to plant anything. We've run out here once or twice and got a few bits and pieces in, but it has literally just been too wet and too cold. Hopefully over the next week or so we can get out here, have a good tidy up, plant the gaps of things that just haven't made it, and hopefully everything else will now pull forward, and we'll actually see some growth on everything. So here in the bubble, we're still absolutely rammed. Usually by now most of our pricking out would be going straight up into cold glass, and cold as in ventilated all the time, but because it has been so grotty and wet and cold, we've been using this space, and obviously we shut the vents up in here at night, so it's just had that modicum of extra warmth. And yeah, I mean, we are literally still very rammed in here and moving stuff up to the top house afterwards, so it's a sort of a successional process, but something we don't usually expect to be doing in the beginning of June. So up here in the top house we're doing our usual thing. We're growing a few veg for ourselves, so we've got some peas, some of our climbing peas running along here, and in the rest of the house, as I say, because of the way the weather's been, we've still got an awful lot in here that's taking the trip from the bubble to here, and then outside eventually, and of course we're also thinking about next year. So we've got crops of asparagus coming along, and other perennials and things coming along for the autumn. But yeah, again for June we're actually a lot more full in here than we'd really expect, but it really does come down to the weather. So I'll finish off out here in the cell area, and here we're looking at some perennial brassicas, some perennial cauliflowers that we're just waiting for them to form seed. As you can see, most of them are flowered or flowering, and the seed pods are just starting to form, which will be useful. So that's seed for later on in the year and next year as well. And yeah, over in the veg cage itself, we're still full of an awful lot of veg plants. Again, it's been a late year, so with things like the peas and beans, we've continued to produce because it has been so late, and it's still fine to plant now as well. So we're just sort of running through the last of some crops, but most of them we're still going to produce on for a few more weeks. And then over in the rest of the cell area, we're pretty jam-packed with perennials, which are all ready, and a lot of these are going out right now. So yeah, that's it really for June. Hopefully we have a little bit more time in July to catch up and a bit longer look round the nursery, but meantime, that would do from us.